Saturday. Christmas comes early.
Unbelievable! Welcome to this incredible scene.
Bills.
To the end zone!
Chargers.
It's a touchdown!
An exclusive NFL game.
That's fantastic!
Live in primetime.
Wow!
Only on Peacock.
With a Christmas gift to their fans.
They're having some fun now.
Bills versus Chargers. Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Exclusively on Peacock.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Rival Recon here on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Harry Sethi. After a disappointing 0-0 draw with United at Anfield last weekend saw the Reds forego their opportunity to return to the top of the table, Klopp's side bounced back in style against West Ham on Wednesday evening, securing their place in the semi-finals of the EFL Cup with a 5-1 win over David Moyes' side. Looking to maintain that momentum and reassert their title credentials, the Reds welcome league leaders Arsenal to Anfield this Saturday for what could be a pivotal game come the end of the season in determining who goes on to win the Premier League title. With Arteta's side in fine form of late, Klopp will be hoping for a raucous atmosphere and 3 points that would take the Reds back to the top of the Premier League table for Christmas. And joining me on the pod this week to share his perspective on the development of this Arsenal side and whether they have the quality to go all the way this season, I'm delighted to welcome back commissioning editor for The Guardian's feature section and a lifelong Arsenal fan, Chris Godfrey. Welcome back, Chris. Good to speak with you. Just before ahead of that, we figured out it's since 2018 the last time we had you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I think I was just thinking now that must have been the tail end of the Emery era, if I'm right, or maybe you had a year to go actually. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, usually it's not actually. We don't leave these sort of big gaps between sort of when we get guests on, but such has been, I think, the development for Arsenal that we've had like a whole bunch of guests on since we last spoke, and yeah, people changed their tune quite a lot actually over the past few years. I bet it's like when I've been trying to sell Arsenal season tickets whenever I couldn't make it, back when we had sort of like Emery and late Wenger, no one wanted to buy them, and I bet now that we're good again, everyone's suddenly coming up to me trying to get tickets. And I bet it was maybe a bit like that with Arsenal guests. You couldn't get them on before, and now everyone's sort of chomping at the bit to get on to have a discussion with you. Pretty much, yeah, that has been the case. Yeah, people making themselves pretty scarce in the past, and now, there's an abundance of people who want to talk about this side and the journey they're going on under Arteta, obviously. But before we dive into this season, I feel like it's worth going back to last season and just getting your thoughts on like how things ended up, by the time the last ball was kicked, really. So obviously finishing second in the Premier League after I think it's a lot of the season, obviously leading the table, and I think in terms of the other competitions, not much to speak about with the FA Cup and EFL Cup. The priority obviously was the league and round of 16 for Europa League. But just wanted to ask you, by the time you got to the end of the season, given how things unfolded, I mean, how were you feeling about the campaign? And I suppose then we can move on to sort of like where you thought were the areas that Arsenal needed to strengthen in if they were going to really kick on. Yeah, sure. So I think by the time the dust had settled, I think there's not going to be many Arsenal fans out there who would have been disappointed with last season. It was just like a really phenomenal experience. I know that loads of people feel the same way, but for me, it was probably the most fun I've had watching Arsenal in my adult life. I would have been 15 when the Invincibles lifted the trophy, or 14. I would have been 14. So, it was like the most fun I've had. And yeah, it kind of sucks that we didn't manage to get it over the line. But I think mostly we look back on it with like great fondness. A completely sort of unexpected surprise. I think we took everyone by surprise, including ourselves, and I think that was kind of the problem really, because I think it was basically we just ran hot in the first half of the season and things just leveled out a little bit too much, in my opinion, in the second half of the season. So yeah, I mean, it's a real disappointment that we didn't get it over the line. But I do think most Arsenal fans will be looking back at it and just think it was a great ride. We had some really fantastic moments. The Reece Nelson Bournemouth goal. I don't think I could speak for a week after that. My throat was in shreds. So yeah, I think overall it was just a hugely wonderful experience, and really glad we got to have it really.
I was going to ask you mentioned the Reece Nelson goal there, and can't help but thinking back actually obviously to sort of Liverpool's progression under Klopp over the years. And I think first and foremost, the bit that I think he was pretty keen to restore was that fun, right? Was that ability to go to games, forget about everything for 90 minutes, not have the games be an encapsulation of all your frustrations with the world, like magnified because, I don't know, somebody can't beat their man or whatever. But the fun is restored first. And then in terms of the games that you can think back to last season that you thought were the real high points, I'd love to sort of hear your thoughts on your favourite moments of the season. And then also, I guess, I've got a lot of Arsenal fans in my family, having grown up in North London, should probably support one of Arsenal or Spurs, to be honest, given where I grew up. But my dad's the lifelong Liverpool fan, so that's why I've ended up in this camp. But I mean, lots of them speaking to me throughout the season, as you mentioned, first is a bit of a surprise, then real belief that the club were going to do it as well. And I would just love to get your view on sort of, it's easy to say now, right, that the season's over, but like, just how much were you of the opinion that Arsenal could go the distance last season as well?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, in terms of highlights, I think that I'm not going to say the Bournemouth game was a highlight, because it wasn't. It was an incredibly stressful experience. Like 2 minutes of that were euphoric, wonderful, life affirming, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life probably. Games that stood out. Do you know what? Actually, both the Liverpool games stood out for me in a positive way. Well, the first Liverpool game obviously stood out because I thought that was when we started to think actually we could possibly be more than just top four title challengers here. That was the 3-2 win at the Emirates. And then the second game at Anfield, that was the only time for the first, I can't remember when your goal went in, but when we went 2-0 up, that was the only time, hilariously, that I thought we were going to win the league. Just shows that, you don't count your chickens and all that. But yeah, when we went 2-0 up, I was like, damn, we're actually going to go and do this. We're going to win the league. And then, yeah.
I know what you mean, actually. I think for me, that's what bookmarks Arsenal's season a little bit as well, because I think obviously things didn't tail off completely after that point, but I thought it was like you could sort of see a trend following that. But it's just, I think that first half could easily, in my opinion, have ended 4-0. Like quite comfortably was the way in which Arsenal were dominating Liverpool. So I think, yeah, there was definitely stages of that first half where I thought as a rival fan, oh, they're going to do it. because the plan was clearly arrived at Anfield, a place where you've not enjoyed in the past, with a very clear game plan, and you were executing it.
Yeah, no, I thought as you say, it was so disappointing to go in at 2-1, because it was for at least 30 minutes, it was some of the best football we played that season. But then I guess that was the issue, and the big difference between, and I'm sure you probably will get onto this later, but the big difference between Arsenal this season, last season we were very gung ho. We didn't sort of control games. We just sort of like threw ourselves at them and just sort of hoped that we'd have enough to get us over the line, and we just didn't finish our chances. Really, we should have just buried teams off quicker than we perhaps did, and it just we just sort of left ourselves open a lot at the back, which is fine when you've got sort of Gabriel and Saliba, but when you're missing Saliba, it's a bit of a different ask of poor Rob Holding. So yeah, it was a shame the way things panned out, but hey, it's as I say, we had a lot of fun along the way.
And it's about time you got to the end of the season, you're thinking about this one and thinking about how you could reinforce the side and sort of what changes were necessary. You're talking there about, I think that you're a bit gung-ho last season and couldn't necessarily always control games. Again, lots of similarities to me thinking back to sort of Liverpool's evolution over the years and sort of still trying to get back to that really controlled version that won the title a few seasons ago. Not quite there yet, but the areas that you thought were like integral for Arsenal to reinforce in if they were going to, again, put another challenge in for the title and actually give City a run for their money.
Yeah. Well, I think when we got to the end of the season, I think a lot of Arsenal fans were kind of worried, maybe unnecessarily, maybe that's just the sort of the nervousness of Arsenal fans, the skittishness. But a lot of them were worried, like, did we miss our chance, basically? Was the challenge a fluke? Were we just sort of actually top four contenders running hot? So that was like the main fear in the transfer window. And in terms of where people wanted to see us strengthen, I think it was a case of sort of one player in each third, basically. Defender, a midfielder, and a forward. With the midfielder, the central midfielder being the priority, and obviously we got Declan Rice. So I think that was long touted, long mooted rather, since January. So while it was expensive and there was a bit of up and down in the transfer situation, whether it was going to go to City, it was good to get that one over the line. And then other than that, I think people just wanted to see depth in other areas, because that's kind of one of the main reasons we dropped off was just that lack of depth. When our first 11, which was so good for the first half of the season and largely unchanged basically for much of the Premier League games, it was pretty much just that core 11. But when they started to drop off, then the cracks really showed in the team. So yeah, it was about getting one of each in, really, which I think we pretty much did. I think people probably would have wanted to see a more out-and-out attacking player, maybe like a wide forward or a striker. Obviously, we've got Havertz, who's kind of like that left eight, which is sort of probably counts more as a midfielder, but he's still like an attacking reinforcement. So, between Timber, Rice and Havertz, and obviously Raya as well, which not many people were expecting, if anyone. We just sort of did one in each position, really, one in each section of the.
Yeah, and Timber, I think, obviously extraordinary, unlucky with the injury that he picked up so early on, ruling him out, of course, for this season. Declan Rice, you're right, just seemed a foregone conclusion for so long, and then I think by the time it finally happened, it was like almost a surprise. It happened I think when it did in the end, but and then the signing of Havertz as well, one that posed like some questions as well, obviously around his integration to the side and his relative struggles at Chelsea, right? And so I'd be interested to talk to you about how he's developed this season. But you mentioned Raya there, and I wanted to come on to that because it wasn't necessarily an area where I thought that Arteta would look at and think, okay, I need to change this. I think there's been comparisons in the past to Claudio Bravo and Joe Hart, the situation at Man City, right, when Guardiola came in and clearly wanted a ball-playing goalkeeper, and it was obvious that one couldn't do the job, for example, or was struggling a bit. And I felt, despite my personal, reservations about Ramsdale in the past, I thought he did really well last season, and not only that, just seemed like a real integral sort of figure within that dressing room. So I get your opinion just on, were you surprised that that question was sort of like thrown open by Arteta there in terms of destabilizing Ramsdale, I guess, and clearly had Raya in mind?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was the thing is with Ramsdale is that there's two things. There's Ramsdale off the pitch is just such a phenomenal part of the club. You can't not love him as an Arsenal fan. So there is like a sort of protectiveness from fans, particularly the match-going fans, that they absolutely love him. We absolutely love him, I should say. So there's like an overprotectiveness, I guess, and a desire to want him to see to see him do well. I guess it's like he's not one of our own, but it almost has that kind of vibe, if you know what I mean. Like those players who feel like they've come through your academy. I think because he joined us when he did and was, so outspoken and just such a breath of fresh air. In an era where footballers just aren't always that, and nor should they be. It's up to them completely.
Yeah. Seemed to really fit the culture of the club, didn't he? I thought, hand in glove. Well, God, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So there's that aspect of it, which is obviously really galling for the Arsenal fans who do love him to see his position come under threat. But I think if you look at it objectively, like while it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't have had it in like the top 5 positions that I would look to upgrade on. There were question marks about Ramsdale last season. There was a couple of high-profile errors. His distribution in some games wasn't amazing. You kind of looked at it and you thought, well, I'm sure Arteta will probably get round to replacing him in a year or two if he doesn't progress his game. I don't think anyone really expected that to happen last summer. I would have thought there were much more pressing needs that we could have used.
Sure.
25 million that he spent on Raya, whatever it is, 25, 30 mil. But I guess they just saw an opportunity there with Raya that they thought we should just do this now. So, and since he's come in, I know he's had a shaky start. I don't think the situation has benefited either of them. I think it's knocked both their confidence, which is great, especially for a goalkeeper. But he's had like a bit of a shaky start and then has then looked largely quite settled. He's allowing us to play further up the pitch because he does that sort of sweeper keeper role, almost playing as the sort of centre back at points in his positioning when we have the ball. Could Ramsdale do that? I'm not sure. I mean,
The holidays start here at Kroger with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Kroger has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
I would say I want to see it, but I also don't, just in case. So yeah, it's tough. It's just really hard to take. And I guess the way I see it is if it wasn't Ramsdale, if Ramsdale had like Bern Leno's personality, basically, would I feel quite as upset? And I just don't think I would. I think I'd be just quite accepting of it. And while I do feel that, like, the off-field culture is important, I don't think it's anywhere near as important as whatever happens on the pitch, personally. So I think we've got a player who's probably slightly better on the ball. And this season, we are spending a lot of time on the ball, more than last season, at least in our territory. So the territorial advantage is far greater for us this season when we're playing teams. So I kind of do see the logic. Would I have done it? Probably not this season, no. But I guess, as I say, it was just an opportunity thing. They just saw their chance and thought they'd had to grab it, really. Yeah,
because I guess from my perspective as a fan from the outside looking in, is that I think you're right. It seemed like an opportunistic move, to be honest, because just in my view, I think you're right. He is better on the ball. His distribution is better. He's more comfortable in that aspect of his game. But in terms of an all-round goalkeeper, I didn't think the upgrade was massive. Certainly not, right? I thought it was, shot stopping and the other sides of his games. I'm not sure how much there is between them, really. But yeah, I think clearly, as you say, maybe it was an opportunity. I thought, okay, we can marginally get some marginal gains here, where we weren't expecting maybe to address this, and they did so. So yeah. I think, it's been interesting to see how that's done. I mean, you sometimes see it in your rotation between European or cup competitions in the league, but I was just a bit surprised to see how quickly that, just not even rotation, just obviously Raya being the first choice in the league came to fruition. But the season starts with go on, Chris.
I guess the only other thing I'd say on that is I do think Ramsdale probably, in terms of like the traditional keeper metrics, shot stopping.
Are you that person who has everything? the coolest merch, and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
You know, one-on-ones, that kind of stuff. I reckon Ramsdale probably is better than...
Yeah.
But what I would say is that this season, we just really don't concede many shots at all. We don't give up chances, if you're looking at underlying metrics, the expected goals against is quite loud, quite low. Sorry, we just don't give up the chances that we gave up last season. So it's almost like the need.
There's less of a need for it. Yeah,
need for a keeper almost. So actually, maybe Arteta said, I don't mind if the keeper's a little bit worse if he's better, like in goal, if he's better sort of playing outfield, I guess. So maybe it's that, but who knows?
Yeah, it does make sense to be honest, because I was going to come on to talk about that. I think obviously I'm aware of Arsenal's defensive numbers, and I think the best in the league, sort of at the moment anyway. This is an elite level like defense in terms of the numbers they're putting up, and as you say, very few chances generally being like let through. To be honest, for Raya to have those moments, and again, you're playing higher. He's more comfortable sweeping, which again gives you some flexibility there. So I think it's that calculation that you mentioned that Arteta may have made does make sense to me. And coming into the season, with those reinforcements, then you talked about a bit of anxiety about just making sure that there wasn't a flash in the pan last season, that you'd solidify yourselves as a team that's going to be top 2 in the league, top 3 in the league, like challenging for the title. Were those your expectations then by the time the window had closed?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was always an underlying fear because, we've not had back-to-back title charges since, I guess, probably literally the Invincibles was probably the last time we had back-to-back title charges. So it all felt very alien going into a season expecting to be challenging for a title, because we've really not done that for a while. Had a summer and gone in to the season thinking that we're in with a shout. So there was sort of underlying nervousness that wouldn't be the case. But I think after the Community Shield performance, I know it's the Community Shield and some people it's just glorified friendly, but for us, we saw that there was still the same team capable of good performances. So we were probably expecting to challenge for the title, but against the treble winning City side, I don't think anyone expects to win the title at all. I think it was like I think we'll probably be there or thereabouts in March and April, and then City will probably steamroll everyone. But and you know what, we would have been absolutely fine with that. I don't think you don't even expect to win the title with City about, but as you guys know more than anyone else. But yeah, I think after the first couple of games, I think we were sort of prepared to declare ourselves as not fluking it last season in terms of being in a race.
Yeah, I remember getting some of that last season. My Arsenal friends and family, occasionally asking me for my opinion. Oh yeah, what do you think? Are we gonna make it? And I was like, well, I'm pretty scarred. as a Liverpool fan. So even when you guys were flying, I was like, I'm just I've been in the situation. And I was thinking that they would come back and they would find a way, just because of course that's what they've done to these, well, for me anyway, the greatest Liverpool sides I've seen, like in my life so far. So it's just a real tough opponent to really get on top. And I think when they have lost, it's been people getting so far ahead or creating such a gap that they've given up, or it's become a bit more of a challenge for them, or they're fighting on too many fronts or whatever. But again, that remains to be seen. But I want to get into the season and just ask you, I mean, when we speak, of course, ahead of the weekend's game at Anfield, Arsenal, top of the league on 39 points, Liverpool, second in the league, same games played, 38 points, very tight on goal difference as well. Villa are right there as well, on 38 points in third place, so played incredible. And City down in fourth. Just wanted to get your opinion on, how the season's unfolded so far, and just games that stick in your memory so far this season that maybe reinstilled that confidence. Okay, no, we're here, and we're a serious footballing team.
Yeah, sure. How has the season gone so far? I mean, obviously we're ecstatic. We're top of the league. It's nearly Christmas. We're very happy with how things have gone. I think it was a very slow start to the season, and it's taken a bit of adjustment because we were very exciting last year, and we're not very exciting this year, to be frank. We're a much safer, more composed outfit. We sort of go for control and sort of almost slowly strangling teams rather than running towards them all guns blazing, 80 shots in the first half kind of thing. So I think that it's taken a bit of adjustment to accept that we're not going to be as fun to watch this year. But we're going to go into most games, and we have gone into most games. And by the end of it, you come out thinking either, we thoroughly deserve to win that, or, we left points on the table there. The Villa game sticks out to me when we lost 1-0. I think if you play that game 10 times, we win it 9 times out of 10, to be honest with you. I don't know I know how we didn't win it. We didn't vary our chances at all. So we've been a bit wasteful in some games. There's been a couple of games where I thought that actually, for whatever reason, we were beaten and or dropped points and deserved to do so. Probably Newcastle away being one of them when they beat us 1-0. And the Chelsea game, we actually got away with one there when we left with a point 2-2 at Stamford Bridge. But other than that, I'm pretty sure that most of the other games we played, I felt that we've been the better side and we deserved to win or didn't deserve to drop points, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe that's sort of blinkered Arsenal rose tinted glasses on that one. But I mean, it really does feel like we go into most games fully capable of sort of imposing ourselves on them and controlling them and dictating how we want things to go. I thought the Brighton game this weekend was probably the best performance we've done in the league this year, possibly. I mean, I thought it's probably either that or the City game for 2 different reasons. Obviously, the City game probably actually should have been a draw, to be fair. But those big games are always so close, and the chances, you just don't give up as many chances, do you really? So it could just go either way. But I thought the City game was a case of us showing sort of great maturity. And while that sort of meant that it was quite a boring game for the neutrals to watch, I think, I'm glad, obviously, that we were able to do that and not for once just have City sort of absolutely blasting through us willy-nilly, just scoring whenever they want. And then, the Brighton game at the weekend was just a great example of, I think, what Arteta wants this team to do. And to limit Brighton to the number of shots that they had. I think they had about 3 or 4 shots on target, maybe, if that. A couple of them probably should have been offside. Maybe it was 6 shots and a couple of them should have been offside, sorry. But I just thought it was really quite a glorious thing to behold for an Arsenal fan, to finally beat that Brighton at home hoodoo as well, because they normally actually beat us at home, to be honest. But I guess those are the games that stand out to me. Probably the City game and the Brighton game this weekend. The Brighton game probably most because it's probably freshest in my mind, to be honest with you. But and a lot of our games have followed a very similar pattern. They all kind of blur into one a bit.
Lots have mentioned it. I mean, again, lots of Arsenal fans in my life anyway have mentioned that game and mentioned it being probably the most complete performance they've seen for a while. And it's interesting, the parallels again around me thinking about Liverpool's progression over the years, and swashbuckling, plenty made of this sort of heavy metal football, even if it sort of actually never really transpired in the Premier League anyway. But much more of an attack-minded side that gradually curbed that sort of side to it and had more of a focus on control. I think certainly the season where Liverpool won the title, they won that title on their defence rather than rather than necessarily having the best attack. It was a weird feeling. I know what you're saying about having to adjust expectations of, you're used to scoring 3-4 goals, it being a really exciting game, and then you realize that you're the sort of team that can go into a game and score, and then if you don't need to, just defend and take the 1-0 or make it a boring game and to take a low scoring win. That's not a place where Liverpool have certainly been for a long time. They're not quite there yet again, but I think when you do get into that sweet space, it's a real, I think, sort of sign that you're a genuine title contender, because you don't have to overexert yourself like that. You don't have to constantly ratchet up that intensity for each and every game. So I think it's more sustainable. And some of the late wins I'm thinking about for Arsenal, the United one, City, some of the other comebacks as well that come to mind as well. But one person who has been like in the spotlight for a couple of those is the big money signing Declan Rice, and he's a player who I think I've had interesting discussions about in the past, because I was always unsure as to sort of what he would develop into, and I think it's much clearer now what kind of footballer he is. But just give me your view on how he settled into this Arsenal side, and I think culturally fits very well. But on the pitch, I mean, just what have you made of him, and has he surprised you in any way?
In terms of how he settled, I think there's probably some recency bias here, but I cannot think of a single signing we've made which has hit the ground running quite as fast as Declan Rice has.
Right.
He's just been absolutely phenomenal from the first game to his man of the match performance on Sunday. There's just he's become really boring for Arsenal fans to talk about, because it's a bit like when we talk to each other about Declan Rice, like, yeah, he's superb, fantastic, barely puts a foot wrong. Thank God we got him, because he's just incredible. His ability to recover the ball, his ability to drive with the ball, obviously all his sort of like off the pitch stuff, his sort of like rousing Roy of the Rovers style, sort of galloping, and his sort of personality is something we've sorely lacked for a while. And yeah, he's surprised. I think the interesting thing with him is when he first came, I think he's taken a bit of a while to develop the sort of more offensive side of his game. He was very good defensively when he first joined us in the first periods, making incredible last-ditch tackles, showing, real grit. I can think of the Palace away.
Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.
Which I think was maybe the second game of the season, where we were holding on with 10 men with a 1-0 lead, and he was just everywhere. He was just everywhere making tackles like he loved it, and I'm sure he did love it. But slowly but surely he's sort of developed the sort of more offensive side of his game, I guess, as he's learned what Arteta wants from him. And now, he's just pinging balls forward, driving forward, making good runs. So it's kind of wild to me that he joined and was as good as he was in the first few games, and he's got better. Because I kind of thought when he joined, I was like, this is amazing, and if it stays like this, then that's great. But the fact that he got better over the sort of 3 or 4 months we've had him has just been an absolute joy. And I think if we're going to do anything this season, it really depends on him, and I guess Saliba and Saka staying fit. Because with those three, I'm pretty confident that we can do something special this season. But if there was God forbid, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but if there was an injury to Rice in particular, I think we'd struggle a bit to try and replicate his qualities on the field.
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin De Vries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, have you had any time without him this season? He seems to be, he's always been there, hasn't
he? He did.
More or less.
The only time we missed him was when we were playing Spurs at home, and we had him for 45 minutes, and then the second half he was subbed off, and yeah, we miss him. I know it's one of those like, yeah, you know, you can easily say that now, but I don't think we draw that game if Rice is on the pitch, to be honest with you. Not least because Jorginho literally gave him the ball away in the on the back line, but yeah, so I'm sure that's the only time we've missed him. Maybe there's been one or two other games. He's been rested for like League Cup games and stuff like that. But in terms of games that, with respect to the League Cup, actually matter, I don't think we've been without him much at all, to be honest.
Very topical, because Liverpool in action this evening in a game that, in my opinion, doesn't really matter. Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I think that has happened more to me. I was thinking about it earlier this season. It's just the way in which City have just distorted everything, to be honest. I think the way in which a point away to your rivals, the traditional top six or whatever you might like to call them, it's just fine. So many seasons it's been fine to do that, and you just build and you go again. And yet I think every point lost, every chance you take with injuries or fitness feels like it's high jeopardy now. And yeah, I get what you mean about a cup that's named after whatever energy drink is going in that year. But yeah, it does feel weird that I share your stance this evening. I'm thinking, well, I don't really want to see many Liverpool players in that, or the first team in that squad. But again, you're one game away from a semi-final, and the competition doesn't seem like it's that strong. But both eyes for me are already on this Arsenal game this weekend, and I know Arsenal aren't playing midweek, so it's going to be a nice rest for those guys. So yeah, it's weird how that cup has become like so devalued, all those competitions anyway. But I wanted to just quickly touch on the other signing. Well, don't say the other signing, but one signing that was divisive. Was always going to be divisive in terms of sort of how people reacted to the signing inside the club, outside the club. Kai Havertz seems to be having his best patch for Arsenal of late since he joined the club. Give us your thoughts on, I mean, that integration process. If Declan Rice's was a smooth one, it's been more of a grind for Havertz to sort of really find his feet.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's probably to be honest, probably the reason we had what was perceived in terms of the way we were playing as a slower start was the fact that we were trying to bed in two new midfielders of the three. Obviously Havertz, Ødegaard and Rice. With Havertz, see, I'm not sure he's doing too much different to what he was doing at the start of the season. I think that there's two things. I think he's obviously managed to get a few goals, which helps get
always, yeah.
Back. But also I think that the team now understand a bit more about what he's capable of. So if you take his goal against Brighton, for example, when he sort of made a good run and Eddie thread it through to him, he was trying to make runs at the start of the season. I sit in the North Bank, so in the second half, I always have Arsenal attacking towards me. And I could remember the amount of times I could remember seeing him like going to make the run, and then probably Zinchenko would go to pass the ball, but then actually just pass it to the side and stuff. And I feel like it's a combination of, yeah, he probably understands the left 8 role a bit better now, but it's probably more that the team understand what he's capable of, that he's, great off the ball. He's going to arrive in the box, probably at the back post. And there's probably just more of an understanding of how to best utilize him from the team. But his sort of the defensive side of his game has always been fantastic. Like he's always been. I know that's probably not what you want to be hearing about one of your attacking midfielders, but that position, if you think about Granit Xhaka last year, sort of like brilliant tackler, winning the ball back in high places, looking at the turnover, good pressing, an outlet potentially, for the long ball, winning the second balls. Havertz has always been brilliant at that stuff since he came to Arsenal. He's had one or two games where he's been a bit. It doesn't help that he looks unenthusiastic. So when he has a bad game, it looks like he doesn't be there. But I think that's just his face, to be honest with you.
I know what you mean, yeah.
So I think he's largely been pretty consistent. It's just that the team has sort of understood a bit more about him, and he's been lucky enough to just score a few goals. Because I can think of plenty of opportunities in the sort of first half of this half of the season, the first quarter of the season, I should say, where, actually, if it was just a little inch to the left, or if he'd just done, that slightly differently, he'd have had the couple of goals and people would have been off his back immediately. But again, maybe that's just me seeing the best in our £65 million signing and just trying not to get too upset about a slower start. But I do think he's been by and large pretty good. And obviously he was our player of the month, November. And I imagine he's probably going to win it again, to be honest with you. There's a lot of love out there for him. Not with the song, obviously, as well, the Waka Waka chant.
Yeah. It feels like a real milestone for him, actually, at the club, winning that award. And just, certainly getting your own chance always is always a nice one as well. Last season, I think, given the way in which Liverpool fell off and realised, I think, quite early on they needed to rebuild their midfield, which they've done 80% of, I'd say, with one glaring sort of absence. But there's really, it was you and City who were battling it out for the title this season. I mean, I just read the league there, and it's at this stage much closer amongst a number of teams. Although City, of course, are the ones that seem to have had a bit more of a drop off than people would have expected. I just wanted to, I guess, get your opinion on how you see that that tight race, who you view as your rivals in the situation, what your thoughts are on the Liverpool rebuild from an outside perspective. Be interested to get your thoughts on what you've made of Liverpool, if you've seen much of them this season. Because it's always good to get out the bubble and hear somebody else's opinion on your own team that you're microanalyzing every minute of.
Sure. In terms of title race, I do think it's a three-way race. I think Villa will drop off. I think that their style of play is not sustainable. I can't see it being sustainable. I also think they'll get worked out by teams. That high line they play, that they're going to get found out more and more, I think. And also, having had experience with Emery, the phrase of Emery is there's no greater manager, there's no manager better at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, was the sort of saying when he was at Arsenal. So I do discount Villa from that, and maybe that's a prediction that will come back to bite me later on in the season. I do think it's probably a three-way race, although my opinion of Liverpool really depends on whether you sign a 6 in January. I think if you don't get a 6, I think you'll probably drop off faster than whoever comes second, basically. But I think if you get a 6, you guys are going to be dangerous and you're going to be hanging around. And as for who wins it, throw all three teams up in the air and see where they land, and I'll probably believe you and be like, yeah, that's fair. That's the order it's going to end up in. I've watched a bit of Liverpool this season. I mean, I'll confess, I'm one of those football fans. Like 90% of the football I watch and read and consume is Arsenal focused. I do catch the big games on TV, normally at 12:30 when I'm having my lunch.
Yeah.
So I've caught you a few times, and I thought that the lasting impression, and I will admit I've not been watching these games too closely at all, trying to sort of form an opinion, but the impression a lot of the time was that while it felt there was an inevitability to you sort of like winning the game, I'm thinking of was it Luton you played recently where you scored in the last?
No. We equalised. Yeah, it was equalised against Luton. But Fulham, Palace, was it?
Palace, yeah. Sorry, it's the Palace game I was watching. that, while it felt like there was a certain inevitability to you guys winning that game, I did also feel like I felt like there was a sort of soft underbelly, is such a cliche, and I don't know if that's what I'm trying to say, but it didn't feel like the Liverpool of old, and I certainly felt that there was potentially, it just felt like there was more chance of an upset, I guess is what I'm saying. You didn't feel as like solid, and attacking wise, you didn't feel as potent. So I don't know. It's a weird one, really, with Liverpool. Whenever I've watched you, I mean, I did watch the United game, although I was, by the end of it, I was really second screening because it wasn't the most fun watch.
Yeah, apologies for that.
No, I think that was more them than you, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I do just feel that you're missing. I do just feel you're missing an elite number 6, a sort of central midfielder to tie everything together. And as I said, if I think you get that, I think you guys will be deadly, and I think you'll be here to stay for a while. But yeah, I mean, in terms of who's going to win it, I mean, as I say, it's any of the 3 for me, and I believe you, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you there, because I think my own perspective on Liverpool is I didn't expect Liverpool to be in this position where there's an opportunity to challenge for the title. I thought it was going to be another season where it needed to be some work bedding in a lot of new players and a lot of midfielders there. But as you say, nobody that actually really fulfills the role that you need as the basis of letting your attack do their thing, really. So, I mean, Wataru Endo came with lots of glowing reviews from those who actually watched him in the Bundesliga, who probably know a lot more than us anyway. I wouldn't claim to have seen much of Endo, and I think he's another one who's settling actually, and is definitely seems more of a solid customer than I think maybe I gave him credit for when it was signed. But like, for me, it's the positives have been seeing Van Dijk, I think, return to like not far off where he was a few seasons ago. Maybe not as quick anymore, but defensively seems to be locked in again. And Alisson doing his thing as well, and Salah continuing to do what he does. I think for me, as I said to some friends earlier this week, I think there's a couple of players who probably have it in their hands. If depending on how their season goes, Liverpool either maintain this challenge or start to drop off a little bit. And one of them is the guy who's not scored in 10 games now, Darwin Núñez. I think if he starts scoring chances just at league average, I think it's going to be a much smoother ride for Liverpool. And yeah, that could well happen. We'll have to see. And then
I love watching Núñez. You just never know what's going to happen.
No, it's fun for a while. Honestly, trust me, it's fun. But I think he does. He's another one who does need the odd goal every now and then just to make you go, okay, this is worth it. I think the United game was a particularly frustrating watch for him. And I suppose the other big question of this Liverpool side this season is a lot of things have been done to enable Trent Alexander-Arnold to do what he's currently doing, and is it worth the payoff? I think effectively is going to be a big question of the season. Is it worth the payoff to sort of have this compromised halfway house between sort of a right back, but really wants to be in midfield and spends a lot of time in midfield during the game. It's made us more defensively solid, but I think a lot of emphasis is now put on him, and I do wonder how that's impacting others. So I guess it brings us on to the game. I mean, as we said, Liverpool playing this evening against West Ham. I do fully expect Klopp to do what Klopp tends to do, where you see quite a few first teamers in that squad maybe be keen to get rid of the sort of the bitter taste of that United draw. And again, it is a couple of games away from a trophy. So we'll see what he does. But Arsenal have the midweek free. What are you expecting from I suppose Arteta in terms of how his approach for this game? You spoke about how impressive Arsenal were in the first half anyway of the game at Anfield last season. Do you expect him to take a similarly positive approach?
I do, but I don't expect it to be as aggressive. I expect it will just be a case of sort of slowly trying to impose our game on you, if that's possible. and just sort of controlling it a bit more. And it'd be interesting to see whether it works. And because we played a lot of teams this season who've adopted the low block against us, and it's been, obviously frustrating to watch as a fan rather. But when we have played teams who try to come at us a bit, which has been the case, especially in the Champions League, we've kind of had our best performances. It's really worked in our favour, and I don't want to say that's how I expect things to go down with Liverpool. I think Liverpool obviously cut above Brighton and the teams we faced in the Champions League. So there's going to have to be an element of caution to how we play normally. But I do kind of expect him to see it as an opportunity to, I guess, almost like proof of concept. This works, and this works at the highest level in the toughest of grounds. I feel like now's the time. We're hitting form. All our players are sort of a lot of our players are not sort of like fresh and uninjured. There's still some long-term injuries out there. But the ones we've got are all sort of fresh and firing and sort of bedded in. So it does feel like now would be a good time to go to Anfield and try and, I guess, do what we did to City, I guess, at home this season. Although, there's a bit of balance to that. But I did feel that we had, a good element of control in that game. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think I had a thought and it's just gone.
Any obvious sort of tactical switches you think he'll make for this game, or like pretty much the team the team is the team?
Yeah, I think it's an unchanged 11. And why would you change it? After that performance against Brighton, week off, everyone should be sort of pretty fresh. I don't think anyone who is currently injured. So our injuries at the moment are Thomas Partey, Tomiyasu, Timber, obviously. And Jorginho was out with a knock. He might be back on the bench. And I think El Neni was out with a knock, and I guess he might be back on the bench as well. But I don't think anyone returning from injury stands a chance of getting into the first 11. So I think it'd just be business as usual, really. In terms of the 11. And yeah, I'd be really, that's what I was going to say. This is the first time we're going to Anfield, and I'm optimistic, which is, maybe this is going to come back and haunt me. But I really do feel like we're going to go there and finally win at Anfield after God knows how long. Foolhardy, maybe. I'm also one of those guys who looks at, like, you get those stats where it's like, hasn't won there in 10 games. I'm like, today's the day.
Yeah.
The foolish gambler in me thinks, now's the time to bet big. I
think it was 2020, the Arsenal last one, actually. That wouldn't have been the league. No. That was in the league, but that was at Arsenal, actually. No, you're right. Yeah, Liverpool at Anfield. It's been.
I think it. That 3-0 game when we had Giroud, Cazorla, and Podolski, our 3 new signings, all scored, and Diaby had the game of his life before one of his many injuries. It can't be.
Yeah, you're right.
Is it that long ago?
I'm just looking at you. I'm scrolling up this list, and what's it?
13, 14, maybe.
Yeah, this is fantastic radio, but I can't quite.
The point is that
it's been a while. Yeah,
that has to change at some point, and I've just got this feeling it's going to be this weekend. I feel like off the back of that Brighton game. Hopefully Klopp goes full 11 against West Ham tonight. Extra time, I just kind of feel we're gonna get a victory at Anfield, and I think it might be a deserving one as well. I got a funny feeling, but as I say, that could just be the foolish rose-tinted Arsenal glasses gambler inside of me.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the games in which sides have come at you a little bit more and not adopted that deep defensive block. And I think Liverpool are not going to be doing that. They'll be the usual high line. I imagine Konate and Van Dijk, who are 2 of the quicker in the league, are going to be doing that. So I expect it to be pretty high. But actually, just hearing you say that, I think that was one thing I was thinking like towards the last 10 minutes of the United game, as I didn't quite dual screen it, but I was also dropping off because it was, of course, such a frustrating game to watch. It was sort of a relief that I knew Arsenal wouldn't do that, and that Arsenal would come expecting that they can get a result, expecting that they could win. And that's really the kind of game I think Liverpool want as well at the moment, whilst they're this incomplete side who can't really do what Arsenal are doing at the moment, where you can control games like in the way in which you showed, I think, certainly against Brighton. But they can't do that, and they live they live in a bit of the chaos. They live in the space. So I think a lot of the players thrive in that. I think, to your point, conscious of the injuries here as well, and the midweek. But I mean, McAllister may or may not be back in time, but that doesn't look super positive. To be honest, Robertson's obviously out. Jota not back yet, unfortunately, because I know he loves this fixture. Matip gone for the season, and the figment and the myth of Thiago, I have no idea. Says here hip injury, a few days. I'm seeing online, and I just so no expectation to see him for at least a couple of months, which is a real shame because he's such a joy to watch. But yeah, I do expect it to be I don't think Arsenal want it to be a frenetic game, but I think that's what Liverpool will try and do, because I think they can't really go toe to toe in a controlled sense, I don't imagine. But you're expecting, or I think you said that you're hoping for a win. So the last thing I'll ask you before we wrap up then is, at this stage, 20th of December, you did mention earlier on the pod, throw up those three teams and see where they land, and you probably believe it. But right now, if I had to ask you, what are you expecting for the remainder of the season? And how important is Europe as well? Because obviously, made light work of that group, but I suppose the games will now get tougher. And how important is that as well for Arsenal this season?
Well, I think Europe will definitely have a say in the title race, not least because you guys are going to be burdened with the Thursday-Sunday shift for as long as you're in the qualifying round, the knockout round, of the Europa League, and that hurts. That trust me, we did it for about 5 years. That schedule, it does hurt. Playing second after City and Arsenal have beaten their rivals and gone 3, 4, 5 points clear. It's tough. It's tough to do, and can get quite tiring as well, especially when you're going to some of the places in, the sort of far reaches of Europe. So I do think Europe will have its say in the title race. More pronounced on Liverpool. I expect Arsenal will probably get to like the quarterfinals or something, and then probably get found out by a slightly bigger team. It's our first year back. Would love to get to the semi-finals, but I think we should progress against Porto, and then. From there on, I see it as a free swing in our first season back. And I think City will probably go quite deep into the competition, and I'd like to say that would affect them, but I don't think it will, as we saw from last season. So I think Europe's going to have a say for sure. I've got a feeling if we beat you at Anfield on Saturday, I would back us to win the league, to be honest with you. I think that it would it's like one of the final.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mag boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Sort of curses, for want of a less weird term, that we need to break. There's Anfield and the Etihad, and I think if we can do Anfield, and with the way City are playing, I know people say don't write them off and everything, but I don't know. I've just got a funny feeling that Saturday could be a great litmus test for whether we're going to do it or not. So I would say if we beat you on Saturday, I would back us to win the league. Not by much. I'm not going to say we're running away with it, but I would feel that we would basically. Do you know what? Actually, you were mentioning about the evolution of Liverpool from the season when you're playing rock and roll football to the more controlled, and it was when you were more controlled that you won the league. That comparison has been made among Arsenal fans this season. A lot of people have looked at the way we played last season and thought it felt very that year when you just sort of fell away a little bit to City, and then the season after you sort of honed the rough edges and sort of developed and evolved and showed more maturity. And that comparison has been made by Arsenal fans this season. We're sort of looking at it and thinking, have we done a similar trick here where we've, pushed away a bit of the fun and a bit of the excitement for a bit more control? So, yeah, I've just got this funny feeling we're going to do it this year. It's not as romantic as it was last year, where I was like allowing my heart to get the best in me, being like, yeah, of course, it's going to be amazing. I think this season it's a bit more just a sort of, I don't know, funny feeling. I'm looking at all like the evidence, all the underlying metrics, I just think the fact we've got Declan Rice and Saliba in our teams as well, who I think are probably the best midfielder and the best centre back in the league, helps as well. So I've just got this funny feeling that we do it, but I think I'd be more confident once I know the result of Saturday's game.
Yeah, I think to give you the Liverpool's perspective, I think where Liverpool fans are is not quite believing in this side just yet, because again, I think it's hard when you're contrasting them with the sides that we've seen over the past few seasons, even the ones that didn't win the league. I think the ones that got mighty close anyway, doesn't feel like that side is quite there. But there are some of those totems who are still in the side, if that makes sense, right? I mean, Alisson's still there. I think he's the best goalkeeper in the world, personally. I mean, Van Dijk is close to those levels where he was a couple of seasons ago. You've got Salah still doing large amounts of the bits Salah has always done. So it's really about just whether or not the rest can give them the support that they need. And I think that front three is the one where it's going to be, a real tough act to really match. So I think this weekend, I think for Liverpool fans as well is another test. I think how seriously do we really take this side? Can they beat this Arsenal side that are probably at the strongest they've been for how many seasons, and certainly at this point in the season? So it's a big one. I've raised the stakes for it myself, and so has my dad, thankfully, by inviting large numbers of the family round to watch it. And there's a 80-20%. It's an 80-20 ratio for Arsenal to Liverpool fans. So he's made it very, very high stakes for us, and I'm sure there's not going to be any fallouts with. Do
you have like rules in place, like no celebrating in people's faces? Is it like respectful, or is it like no?
I don't think. Well, it's been a while since we've watched a game together, I think, and I think there's going to be personally a lot of gracelessness. not necessarily not from me, but I think my dad has underestimated how much it means to him and how much he wants to get one over my uncle, and I know what my uncle's like. So yeah, I'm expecting to be there, holding some sort of drink, some alcoholic beverage, and making side eyes at my cousins and my sister, and going, this could potentially kick off, almost like Arteta Klopp on the sidelines, right? So yeah, I'm delighted that those stakes have been raised for me on a personal level. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on and for giving up your time, right, to let us know. I mean, 2018 to 2023, it's been a big gap, and Arsenal have really grown in that time, I have to say. So it's been impressive to watch. But yeah, thanks again. Really, really, really appreciate it.
Good, thanks, man.
And just as we wrap up here, for all those who've been listening to these Rival Recon pods on Anfield Index Pro, there's a lot of games this month, so we'll try and get through them all if we can. There'll be another pod coming up ahead of a trip to Burnley, which it's always fun on Boxing Day. So we'll see how that is, and there'll be a pod out ahead of that, and then quick turnaround again to the first day of the new year, Liverpool against Newcastle as well. So do stay tuned for those pods. But between now and then, one ahead of Burnley, one ahead of Newcastle. But we'll see you again after the evening at Anfield on Saturday.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.